When Hurricane Katrina struck the New Orleans area early on the morning of August 29, 2005, the storm surge quickly breached the city's levees at multiple points, leaving 80% of the city submerged. Few of us can ever forget the images of tens of thousands of victims clinging to rooftops and hundreds of thousands scattered to shelters around the country. Unbelievably, only 3 weeks later, Hurricane Rita reflooded much of the same area. The devastation to the Gulf Coast wrought by these two hurricanes has been called the greatest natural disaster in our nation's history. Once known as the Big Easy, New Orleans was perhaps the liveliest, most culturally vibrant city in America. It reeled from the disaster. Many said there was nothing else to do but to say goodbye to New Orleans and bury it along with its history. Others said they couldn't accept the death of this great city, and they put their resources and connections into enabling and celebrating its rebirth. Tonight, we honor the Jaffes and the Marsalises. In 1961, a young jazz musician, Alan Jaffe, played jazz tuba in a New Orleans brass band and knew many of the older musicians. He and his wife Sandra found an old building on St. Peter's Street in the heart of the French Quarter. Alan offered the older musicians in town an opportunity to play nightly in the small building. For many, it was a gig after their day jobs, a place for the musicians to play the music they loved in front of a real audience and to even make a little money doing it. The patriarch of another great New Orleans jazz family was born on November 13, 1934. Ellis Marsalis graduated from Dillard University, served in the Marine Corps, and then chose to pursue a career as a modern jazz musician in New Orleans.
The older that I get, the more that I started to believe in divine providence and things not really being an accident. Because the greatest divine inspiration I had was marrying my wife.
I reflect back onto a time when we had a family meeting, like we might have had like 2 family meetings in our whole time of growing up. And my mama would complain all the time about not having money. So it was very interesting thinking this because my daddy was gonna stop playing music and drive a cab. I remember this. And then my mama said in the meeting, no, you know, he shouldn't, she didn't feel like he should give up music.
When their eldest son, Branford, was only 2, Ellis knew this was a boy with musical talent. He gave him a clarinet and thus began what was to become a great musical career.
I gave Branford a clarinet because I had one, which meant that I didn't have to spend any money.
My dad never had to tell me anything because he was the living example of what his advice would be. How he carried himself, how he did his gigs, what he did on his gigs, how he approached the music. That was all stuff that I had to lean on. You know, and I had a role model to guide myself through my career, even though my career was wildly different than anything that my father could have ever imagined.
When Ellis and Branford saw what had happened to the city they loved, they reverted to the vision for which they had become famous. Together with Harry Connick Jr., they contacted Habitat for Humanity to launch a plan to take 8 acres of land in the Upper 9th Ward to build a musicians' village. There, 81 homes will provide housing for displaced New Orleans musicians. In the center of the village, the Ellis Marsalis Center for Music will be dedicated to the education and development of residents and those living nearby. B'nai B'rith is proud to have built one of these houses through our Disaster Relief Fund. And as a result of a challenge grant from the Dave Matthews Band, another house is being constructed, doubling the B'nai B'rith presence in this wonderful village.